fans, old school fans, OSMT Army. Is that our new thing now? We have an army? Maybe OSMT Marines. Why is it always Army? I want an amphibious landing force of old school monster truck fans to assault the beaches of modern monster truck shows everywhere. But hey, welcome back. We're winding down season 1. I think we're on episode 9. Are we now? Does that sound right? Surely we're not to 10 yet. Either way, should have looked at that first. Close to episode 10, in the proximity of double digits, here on Bottom Dead Center on the OSMT YouTube channel. I'm your host and OSMT founder, Kyle Doyle, joined this evening somewhat at the hip in terms of the way we think alike on things by Mr. Matt Looker and Mr. Frank Krimmel. So cue the applause. How you doing, boys?
Oh, doing pretty good.
Outstanding, buddy. That's
Well, shit, I should have pumped in a little more applause there. I was looking for the energy. No. It's a Monday night, everybody. We literally just spent an hour warming ourselves up on here, and we had the best conversation that we could have hoped to record, and then we didn't record it. So hopefully we can muster the strength to summon a round 2 performance for everyone tonight, if you get that reference. Fathers out there, husbands out there. All right. God, where's my soundboard? I need my soundboard tonight. Okay. Well, I need some. I need the trumpet thing. Oh, Lordy. Anyways, boys, it's been a hot minute since all 3 of us have gotten to be on here together, and we've got a big show tonight. So let's get started. We're going to roll right into news, weather, and sports. I'm not even going to ask you sons of bitches where you're at or what you're doing, because it's always the same, man. I'm in New York. I just had some red sauce, and I want to talk about monster trucks. And then the really kind-looking gentleman on the East Coast out there I just got done getting my hands this far deep in a dinosaur, and now I'm over just like sold some beer today. Big freaking deal. So, all right. Well, Matt Looker, let's start with Monster Truck Throwdown. Finally, we've been teasing it for weeks on here. Throwdown season starting, and Throwdown season, it started a couple weeks ago, but boy, did it really kick off this last weekend. Tell us about where you were at.
So we were at Wilmot, Wisconsin, at the Wilmot Raceway. Beautiful facility. Smaller show, just, budgets. And honestly, when you have a good group of trucks, you don't need 10 of them if you got a good group. We had the Zimmers, both of them, Athena, and Farm. Josh Eckel was driving High Tide. It was just a good show. This was our 5th or 6th time there, and this is the first year that the weather was even decent. The other years, it's either poured during the show or poured the days leading up, and track build was terrible. This year, clear, cool, breezy, sunny, gorgeous weather. Track came together nice. The fair board that owns it is fantastic. Chris, that's our venue contact who provides all the stuff. If I could do a show there every week, I would. However, and you guys will understand this, other people that have worked shows will understand this, no venue is built for monster trucks. No matter how well it's designed, we're always trying to figure out how to make it work for what we do. And this track, even though it's a 3/8 mile, I believe, speedway, it's a little narrower than a lot. And what you end up with is basically you have the workable area of like a dasher arena. So, which looks not great at a big speedway. So you have to get kind of creative. So we ended up doing a roundy round where they started in the middle of each corner, like turn 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and they raced towards the front stretch and then went into kind of a traditional Chicago style, because you got to get a little creative at some of these places. I'm sure you guys have dealt with that almost everywhere you go. You got to be a little creative.
I'll drop some pictures or video in, but I'm having a look at that track on Google Maps right now, and you're right. It looks like you should have a lot of real estate, but really it doesn't look like there's a whole ton that you can actually work with. You've got signboards and almost like a scale pad and some stuff in the infield. Is that right?
Yeah, and the big thing, because it's a nice track, and I mean, their grandstands are beautiful. They've redone the place over the last 2 years, and what comes with that is they want things like their perfectly manicured grass not to get destroyed by the monsters. So all that grass we have to stay off of. And, it makes for challenging, but it was still a very good show. Zimmer Jr. is just absolutely on another level. I mean, he won best trick by like going away. And in his winning interview, he's like, "Oh, I didn't really get it to do what I wanted. I was trying to pop it back up." Like, dude, you just made everyone look stupid. But okay. No, it was a good weekend though.
In the '90s it was like Fred Schaefer in the '90s when he had a really hot run on a Penda track. You wish he would have got on the mic and be like, "Well, I don't know, Gary. I think what we were trying to do was get down into threes, but we only made it about halfway into the fours. So we'll try and tune her up for the next round." You're like, "Jesus, Fred."
Or like
Exactly.
Taurus racing Goliath in Canfield. Like Taurus is over the finish line, Goliath's in no man's land, and Jackie Jr. is like, "Well, we got a little bit of a weird bounce in no man's land." And okay.
Yeah. Jackie had 2 tires off and was winching him in the trailer, and Goliath was still endoing between the set of cars.
Oh,
was that?
Right.
It was the same weekend, wasn't it?
Yes, that was.
So tell us a little with some insight into Throwdown. I know you weren't at their big show they did on the West Coast in Salinas, California, but Salinas, if you're any kind of monster truck fan, that's a pretty well known outdoor venue out there. And looked like Brian Manson was involved with the Throwdown crew out there. That signature track design and ramp construction of his, it looked beautiful out there. What'd you hear about Salinas, Matt?
Yeah, so when we have two show weekends like that, I'll usually run the one and Elliot will be at the other. So we stay in pretty close contact. It was a good weekend. They had a great lineup of trucks. Like you said, Brian Manson was out there. He's what we call a dirt wizard. The term in the industry. He's a dirt wizard. He does a great job. Builds really cool tracks. There was backflip ramps, doubles and racing. A lot of big elevated cars and stacked up cars and stuff. And the one thing he started doing this year or last year, I don't remember which, the Jackrabbit, you can actually hit it from all 4 sides now. He puts the cars in lengthwise instead of sideways. So you got a ramp on the side, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know if you saw the clip of Dirt Crew. He did the backflip and then walked it out to a moonwalk and then went off the side of a ramp and almost brought it back over. It would have been like save of the year type stuff if he pulled it out. It was close. But yeah, it was a real good show. It's good for Throwdown to be out on the West Coast. It's kind of rare. We go out to Edmonton every year, but that's not the same as the West Coast. So it was good to be at a kind of a historical, a historical monster truck building. And yeah, it was a good time.
Hey, and also a shout out to Alex Barden, who made his return after his collarbone injury in Monster Jam in January. So this was his first weekend back, and just great to see Alex back. And great guy, and really, because I know what it's like to come back from injury. So for him to get back, and especially to go back into that place, with the track the way it was, I mean, Salinas, he knows the history. He's a monster truck super fan, just like all of us. He knows the history. And so I was joking with him this week, and I said, "Hey, man, how you doing?" "Oh, good. The track's pretty big." I go, "Hey, man, just like we talked about when we were teamed up working for Steve Sims," I go, "just get out there and drive it. Whatever you feel, just go and do what you do, and it'll be fine." He's like, "That's what I'm going to do." And so then I sent him a picture of, it was almost, I want to say 19 years to the day when I drove Del Scorcho there at Salinas. I said, "Hey, man, I won racing there, so you no pressure on you today." He's like, "Oh, man, it's cool." So no,
driving, Frank?
He was driving Rockwell Red, I believe.
Yes,
okay.
He was.
And,
Willie's
he was in
Rockwell Red.
Yeah, whiplash looking thing. Yeah.
Yes. And in that same kind of vein, also a shout out to Devin Winfield. He's got a little less experience than Alex, but they're both kind of the same generation. And Devin won freestyle there, so that's doing something.
Great job. I saw the video of that run. Just outstanding job, man. But not to take anything away from him, but man, I was so glad to see Alex get back in there because he and I spent a lot of time together. He's a great guy, great driver, great kid, great person in general, and I was just glad to see him get back in there because, like I said, I know what it's like to get back in there after you're hurt, and for him to, especially like we talked about a minute ago, rolling in there saying, "Okay, I got a nice one night show, it'll be fine." Then all of a sudden you roll in there and you see, "Oh, look at that!" But I was happy for Alex.
Up at the racing ramp,
you got to look up at it, yeah. But no, I was just happy for him. But no, man, that Salinas event is historic. I mean, a bunch of promoters ran. There's Mike Welch videos from back in the day there, and Golden State Promotions ran there, and all that stuff. So It's a historic place, and man, I've ran there a
Was
couple
that where
times.
the Muscle? Sorry to interrupt. Was that where the Muscle
I
Beach crane drop
think
was? Was that Salinas?
Oh.
Matt, I could be wrong. Oh, it might have been.
I think
It
so,
might have been
but I
because it
don't.
was a. That's where a lot.
Oh
That's
man,
where a lot of that. That's where a lot of that monster truck and you. What was that one video? There was a lot of that
It
shot
was
there.
Salinas 1992.
Yes.
Yes, that is it.
Yeah, that
Sorry,
might have. Man, that might have been.
squirrel. That's according to the highly accurate Monster Trucks wiki. I don't know if you guys have ever been on there. I think it's a satire page some days. According to them, it was the wiki. But yeah, big time shout out to Alex Barden. I mean, we all know what it's like to come back from some injuries. When we were younger, we got injured because we were doing stupid stuff when the truck wasn't working right, or hurt ourselves working on a truck. I can proudly say I've done both of those. Nowadays, the three of us in our advanced age, we're more likely to sprain something in our forearm trying to put too much mac and cheese on the spoon at the buffet. But yeah, shout out to your pillow. Yeah, exactly. You need to call the My Pillow guy. Get sorted out there, Looker. He's on hard times right now. He needs to sell soft pillows. Hey, I want to give a shout out personally too to Elliot Miller at Monster Truck Throwdown. I'll drop a picture in here, but he approached me earlier in the year. He's an old school fan, of course, himself, and all of us go way, way back with Elliot. And he offered me a page in the Monster Truck Throwdown Tour program to do a little OSMT promotion in. So I fooled around with a couple different designs, and then I decided I really wanted to just kind of reach out to fellow fans like we are and just sort of pay homage to the childhood living rooms that we all grew up in watching monster trucks on the TV and stuff like that. So I'll drop the picture of the ad in here, but if you have any chance at all to get a Monster Truck Throwdown yearbook, you should anyways. If you tear that page out, I won't be mad, but I hope you like it if you do see it, because I was pretty proud of how that turned out. So thank you, Elliot, for letting us do that. That's right. Rewind without having to watch VHS tape. Yep, that's right. So Frank, bouncing over to you now. Hot Wheels Monster Truck Live. Your guys' schedule is pretty relentless. You have caught a couple off weekends here and there. It sounds like you might be coming up into an off weekend this weekend. Tell us what you got going on over there, and why you're going to be having your crew guy swim trunks on this coming weekend.
Well, this past weekend that we were in Baltimore, great city, great building, a lot of history in that, as Matt knows, and sure, I'm Kyle, just a great place. And we had a great weekend, no problems with the trucks. Trucks ran flawless. The Bone Shaker ran well. My truck ran well. So we're pretty happy with it. I can't say enough about the Holmans, Bobby, Cody and Taylor and their driver, Kyle Sizemore. They're just great people. And the Bigfoot guys, Eric Steinberg, Cody Smith, just a pleasure to run with those guys every single weekend. I mean, I had no idea what we were getting into when we got into Hot Wheels, to be honest with you. But once we stepped in there, it's like we were already accepted, so that's made it easy. And then as we've gone on every weekend, it just gets better and better. So, I'm looking forward to Stafford Springs, which is our next event, which will be interesting. It's outdoors, which is way different than what we normally do. There'll be daylight at some of these, so it'll be different. So maybe I can stretch the legs a little bit on the old Mega Rex and go back to some of the old Grinder, Blue Thunder, Donkey Kong days when I could actually see, have daylight and see where I'm going, because making no excuses, but maybe it'll be a little different. But this weekend off, of course, right? Which most people would just stay home and not do a lot. But
do laundry.
Buddy Scott, yeah, right. I need to do that, by the way. It's a little behind, but this weekend, my buddy Scott Litticoat, former Young Guns champion, and now the father of Grant Litticoat, who's an up and coming boat racer, he called me up. He says, "Hey man, I got a boat race coming up this week, or I got a boat race coming up this whatever the dates are." He goes, "Can you go?" I go, sure, I'm off that weekend. Where's it at? And he goes, "Well, it's Decatur, Illinois, which is about 14 hours from where we're at here." So I signed up for a weekend off for a 14-hour ride to Decatur, Illinois, which is near Paxton. So hoping we have maybe a guest or two that people may know from that area. Can't guarantee that, but I'm hoping we do. And if we do, I'll definitely let you guys know, and we'll definitely document that. But either way, it's going to be a good weekend with Scott Littlecote and the whole Littlecote Racing family, and looking forward to it. I mean, you guys know, is a weekend off. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to sit home and hang out. But man, if you get the opportunity to go racing and do a different kind of racing, it's kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to it and help the Littlecoats out any way I can.
I'm looking forward to the slow-mo of you coming out of the water.
Yeah.
Crushing the water. Yeah. Like you've got a big tool in one hand, like a inch and a quarter wrench. I don't know what you wrench on the bottom of a racing boat with a wrench that big, but
you don't really touch much in the water. But if there's a video of me coming out of the water, it will look like the Loch Ness Monster coming out of there. I guarantee it.
What are you doing, Frank? I'm knocking barnacles off the hull.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to have a special Bottom Dead Center video segment where one of us instigates this on a weekend like what you're talking about, Frank. And we'll just have to call the segment like drop what you're doing and get on the phone. And we have to answer no matter what. And, in this case, it could be pretty interesting with who you find in the bustling metropolis of the Midwest that is Decatur, Illinois.
Yes, sir.
Well, that'll be interesting. I've seen some different kinds of like speedboat racing and things like that. Evansville, Indiana. I've seen some boats race on the river there before. That kind of comes to mind. I have no idea if that's at all similar to the kind of what do they call these things, like Formula hydroplane boats or some stuff. I don't know.
The Littlecoats they're pretty much really entrenched in the hydroplane aspect of it. Scott raced unlimited hydroplanes for years, very successful, and his son Grant, who was 16 years old, and the fast track in the hydroplane series. So it's I'm just going to say keep your eye on Grant Littlecote. Let's just keep that. Let's just put that on the back burner right now. Keep your eye on Grant Littlecote. He's going to be He's already a successful boat racer, but I think there's opportunity for him in other things, hopefully. So we'll see. Maybe a surf and turf kind of thing.
I like it. Well, we'll look forward to that. We'll see what you get into out there. Definitely looking forward to seeing some pictures or video just in general of what your experiences are like out there. That should be pretty fun. So moving along through our monster truck topics, we got a couple more fun and lighthearted and speculative ones, but we all felt like we needed to make sure we took a minute out of our show this evening to address the unfortunate recent passing of Willie Weaver Jr., also known to some of us old school fans as Bill Weaver Jr., of Rambo monster truck fame, of course. We've talked about Rambo on here before. We did our commentary for the 1990 Mansfield show, Thunder National show, which is now a medium raw episode coming up here pretty soon. Might already be out by the time you see this. We'll see how editing goes. But in any case, with Willie passing, none of us on the show here necessarily knew him personally, but I think we can all agree, the impact that both him and his dad had building and driving the multiple Rambo trucks back in the day. I mean, some of the absolute most entertaining runs you could ever ask a leaf spring monster truck to make came out of, the driving that Willie was doing with Rambo back then.
Yeah. So they're from Hastings, which is about kind of the Syracuse area, like 2 to 3 hours west of me. They were at most of the shows that I went to as a kid. From like 90 was when I went to my first show, up until the early 2000s when Mike Nitschke had Rambo. But both in Albany and at West Leb, and just the stuff they would do with a leafer truck, like your back hurts watching them drive. I remember one of the things I'll never forget, it was 95 at Albany. It was the Knickerbocker Arena at the time. They did a little bit of freestyle, but not too much then. Well, it was a 5 set of cars, straight line drag, typical arena on dirt. He did a reverser wheelie. This would have been Bill Jr. He did a reverser wheelie, cleared all 5 cars from the iron side, landed on the front wheels, and endoed backwards onto the roof. Like, for an arena and a truck like that, it was just like, wow. So the show needed it, as we would say nowadays. Just absolutely insane stuff. Yeah.
I'm going to drop it in here with permission from the good folks over at Back Channel Productions on Facebook and YouTube. They've got some spectacular old school content on their channels as well, and it's just striking to me how hard they ran that truck. He had a video he posted the other day called 1 Minute of Willie Weaver being Willie Weaver.
Yes.
And I can't stop watching it. It's literally like one of the online gaming platforms that monster truck fans have been able to craft into pretty realistic stuff, whether it's BeamNG or rigs of rods. But it literally looks like you loaded a leaf spring truck on one of those games and you're just sending it as hard as you can for laughs to see how hard it'll hit, how hard it'll bounce. That guy was playing BeamNG Leaf Spring Pack 2.0 back before the computer even existed that could, think about running a program like that. And it's just staggering to me how hard they ran that truck. I have no idea how many times that truck got rolled over, but I feel like I see a new video every month of that truck with beat up sheet metal. Like, wow, it must have rolled over another time. So I think they probably trashed that thing well more times than what we think. Just running it hard like you're supposed to. So yeah, our condolences to that family. He was born in 1971, so he passed away at a young age. According to the family's notes on the obit, it might have been a motorcycle accident, unfortunately, which is just absolutely terrible, absolutely tragic. So I know on behalf of all of us at Bottom Dead Center and Old School Monster Trucks, we send our condolences to the Weaver family and everybody over there. And we'll be putting out some Rambo content in the near future. We've got some cool clips in our archive, but probably that show we commentated over on Mansfield from 1990, the Thunder Nationals there. As I said, by the time you're listening to this, it's probably already out to you as a medium raw episode, but there's some great Rambo action in there, boys. And I know we had a pretty good time commentating over that show.
And just absolutely, I had the chance. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say one last thing about Rambo in general. You guys would know better than me because I've never actually drove for a living. Knowing how easily the trucks break now as an adult, watching that thing as a kid, that was a well-built, powerful monster truck.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he would land on concrete on one wheel from, 10, 20 feet in the air sometimes and wouldn't break hardly anything on the truck. Like you'd roll over and also would come back the next show and it would look pristine again. So just the amount of work and effort that they put into building that truck is really understated, I think, in general.
Well,
anyways, go ahead.
That's a great point.
Absolutely. No, my first experience with Rambo, just with, like you guys, was watching it back in the day. And I always had the respect, even though I was too young to understand it, I had the respect of, I'm like, man, that truck always looks cool, runs hard. But then as I got older and got involved in the business, had a little time around the Rambo guys. Obviously, it was with Mike Nitsky and the coil spring Rambo, which is a whole different generation. But I had the chance this 2 summers ago. Not this past summer. Yeah, actually, it was this past summer. Yeah, Alex Barden and I were doing a show in Malone, New York, and Willie came out there, and he had his, of course, black Chevrolet pickup truck parked by the entrance of the pits, and the promoter Steve Perry told us, he goes, "Hey, Bill Weaver's here. Willie Weaver's here." I go, "Oh, what?" So Alex and I immediately, super fans, ran over, and I got to shake his hand. Said, "Willie," I go, "I cannot tell you how much you meant to my childhood watching you run that truck and just seeing what you did. It was awesome." And I go, "It's part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing now." And he couldn't have been nicer. He's like, no, thank you, man. I appreciate you. You're out here doing this. It's awesome. He goes, "We were just having fun." He was exactly what you would have wanted him to be. It's like some people say you don't want to meet your heroes, but man, he was the perfect example of you do want to meet your heroes, because he was the nicest guy ever. And was respecting what we were doing, which blew my mind because of what he did and when he did it.
Yeah.
But he was respecting what we were doing, and I just thought that was amazing. And all I have is, I had probably a 10-minute conversation with him, but it was awesome, and I'll never forget it.
No, that's spectacular, man. And you love hearing that too, that he was still going to shows here and there and was appreciative of what, contemporary drivers are going through and what they're doing and how they're running the trucks, even though we know, that what we would do now is, as impressive as it is, you're doing it in a truck that's built to the very best standards of, and the very best idea of what anybody can come up with to sustain driver safety and driver health through the performances, when back then there was no thought of that whatsoever. I mean, it was compared to a modern monster truck, that stuff back then might as well have been a horse and buggy in terms of any kind of sophistication in the suspension and the fact that a guy, could run a truck that hard like he did back then and still be walking on two was pretty impressive. So it's a sad time for sure. Like I say, and our thoughts and condolences once again to the family of Willie Weaver Jr. So moving along from that, if you saw kind of the little mini update video I posted on the OSMT Instagram the other day, the Monster Blog celebrating their 20th anniversary, which is crazy to think about. Like anything on the internet regarding monster trucks being older than 20 years old, I'm like, damn, we are getting old. But I got a really nice care package in the mail, and I don't know, I got some of the stuff here I'll share with you guys. Hang on. So I was not reaching for the bag from Dick's this time around. I was reaching for the box from Ross. Hey, department store joke. I didn't even mean to. However, these are not discount products that are primarily 3 sizes too small for me and made for kids that play soccer. But Ross sent a really slick Monster Blog 20th anniversary hat, which was slick. And then also kind of more my style, more the subdued mellow hat. And oh my gosh, we got stickers, we got koozies, got my audio going in and out as I lean over here. But call me a sap. My favorite thing was just the nice little handwritten note from Ross. And honestly, that means more to me than anything. The fact that he even thought of me to send anything this way was super kind. When I was still pretty new at Hall Brothers, I got my start obviously in the business through, my work with monsterstyle.com in the early 2000s. And then when I went to Hall Brothers, I was, a huge fan of travel writing and long form prose writing, not to be confused with being good at it. Lord knows I was not good at it. Alan Hartsock from Bigfoot back then even told me once, he goes, Kyle, if I could stand to sit down and read your writing for as long as it would take me, I think I'd really like it. That was thanks, Al. I guess I appreciate that. But Ross gave me the forum to have that long style of writing on there for the people that were bored enough in life or took long enough dumps, I guess, to read that stuff. Although that's talking like you could take a phone in the bathroom with you and read an article. Back then you couldn't. So I guess you'd have been taking your laptop to the shitter with you back then to read that stuff, and you'd have been on dial-up probably. But anyhow, so that was part of my time in the industry back then. And then when I left Hall Brothers, obviously had a little more spare time on my hands and was still wanting to go to shows. And so then Ross had started doing Monster Blog TV, TMB TV. He had done a couple episodes, and it was really kind of a punk rock DIY aesthetic, not in terms of Ross's haircut or his choice of combat boots, which he was not wearing combat boots. But it was more the fact of like, well, if nobody but Speed Channel and Monster Jam are going to put out Monster Truck TV show content, then we're going to try and do it here at the Monster Blog. And, I'm telling Ross's story for him, which isn't fair. This is just how my old ass remembers it. But then I remember thinking, that looks fun as hell. So Colby Marshall, that does a lot of video work for Monster Blog and has for a very long time, we jetted over to the Springfield, Illinois Jamboree in 2008. And we filmed TMB TV there. And I actually had a blast doing it. We thought we did all right on it. Colby's editing saved my ass probably more than once. But then I got a call.
I was there.
Were you?
I was driving Bob and Tom.
You were driving Bob and Tom there?
Yes,
and
sir.
then George was driving the dog. He was driving the monster mutt there.
Springfield?
No, it's Illinois, not Missouri. Yeah, you did the Springfield, Illinois,
okay.
Missouri one on pavement.
Okay.
This was the Illinois Fairgrounds. But in any case,
Okay, sorry.
No, you're all right. I was about to go digging through the pictures, and I'm like, that's that handsome man that I was hanging out with in the pits, but was afraid to talk to. So I literally got a call from Richie Schaefer like the next week, and he's like, "Hey, I need like the nuts and bolts color commentary guy to help George Eisenhart announce our show in St. Louis here in a week at Gateway International Raceway." So very much thanks to having the Monster Blog as a platform for me to try my hand at some of that stuff. I go from doing my first TMB TV episode and the craptastic job I did. I remember my little green snow cone on the microphone going from that to, hey, no big deal. You're at a NASCAR track now. Announce this show with George Eisenhart, who, rest his soul, was one of the greatest announcers that I ever got to be around. So, that's kind of the fun little Monster Blog story I had there. But, I haven't done anything with them for a super long time. When my career shifted to being at Bigfoot, there wasn't really time for me to do any of that stuff. And I definitely kind of went my own way. But I've always respected what those guys do. The monster truck industry now is so in tune with the internet that we just don't even really think about, the role it plays in everything we do. It's just a fact of life. But I have to tell you, especially, you younger fans out there that weren't around back then, you got to know that, like, Truck World Online, Monster Mania, Monster Zone, that was like Gen 1 of the monster truck internet websites that the industry was almost repulsed by that stuff. Like the old timers that had no idea what a modem was, they were very skeptical, very wary of that kind of stuff. I mean, I remember an interview, it might have been with Todd Frolick or somebody, and I'm probably combining some interviews in my memory here, but they'd point to the website on the tailgate of the truck and be like, I don't even know how to use that thing, whatever the website is, you know what I mean? And now we're to the point where drivers are in the cockpit of their trucks with their iPhones filming TikTok reels while they're doing two-wheel skills competitions. So when you got past that Gen 1 series of monster truck websites and those people got older and more busy and couldn't keep up with them, or in the case of some of them, developed like Andrew Palachko and Brian Manson with Monster Zone, they built their own careers in the industry that took them away from, Monster Zone, which is cool. And so then when Monster Style fired up, and then later the Monster Blog and All Monster and everything All Monster ever did was awesome as far as I was concerned, except for anything Travis Sawillo had any hand in. But shout out, Trav. That's for you, buddy. that was total bullshit. I'm not shitting on anything All Monster did. I'm just shitting on our buddy Travis. But so monster trucks and the internet had a kind of a very divergent and a difficult start. But I would say, and maybe I'm being a little bit of a homer, but I think the Monster Blog blended the real practical side of the industry and the electronic side of the industry better than any site ever had. And that was the place to go to for news. There was always cool scoops on there and really important stuff. So I'll leave it at that. I got on a little bit of a soapbox, but 20 years, man, that's crazy. Go back and look at some of the old content on there. The Richie Schaefer interview I did back then, the Jim Cramer interview I did back then. Having the platform for that stuff was really, really cool. So I appreciate that very much. So thank you guys. And congratulations over at the Monster Blog on that. And then I understand, and you guys know Tim Jones. I can't say that I know him personally. I think I announced a show that he was at really early in his career, but I never really got to know him. But I am to understand that and I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Miami, Oklahoma, this coming weekend for the big MAP Motorsports event there. Tim Jones is going to be running a Monster Blog 20th anniversary body, if I understand correctly. Have you guys heard that as well?
Yeah,
I have. I've heard the rumblings, but man, whatever Tim does, Tim always does some wild stuff. So no matter where he's at, it's going to be pretty sweet.
Yeah, Tim's nice. A wild man.
Well, that'll be exciting to see how that shape. Oh, dude, I love watching him run. He's literally like a Tom Meents 2.0 with freestyle stuff. And is he running Ford Power in that stuff too? He seems like a pretty big Ford guy.
He is, yeah.
I don't know. Matt, you may know, yeah.
He does, yeah. And the thing about TMFJ, he runs a concrete pumper at home for his like business. So he runs the truck like he does, like an absolute animal, blows it up, has to back half the chassis. He'll drive home all night, do it on Sunday, work on the truck all Sunday, work during the week, and then haul ass back to the next event. He does all the work himself, like a lot of these guys, but he's just an absolute maniac. And he runs 4
Kyle,
powers
he sounds almost like almost sounds like a Jim Kohler from like a 1998 who would do the same kind of thing and is still doing the same stuff,
Yeah.
Now this is like a perfect like OSMT TV commercial where, the announcer, like Matt Looker's announcing, Tim Jones at the show on Saturday. Oh, it's Tim Jones in the tailgater. And then on Monday, Tim Jones is just like a maniac with the concrete pumper. And Looker's out there, look at him pump the concrete, make some noise. I could totally see that happening, man. He just runs the concrete pumper hard, just like he runs the monster truck. Hopefully he doesn't have to back half the concrete pumper, whatever that means. That could be a t-shirt, I mean.
That sounds like a
whole different subject.
Yeah, back half the concrete pumper on Monday and back half the monster truck on Sunday. It's been a long week.
Shut it down.
You gotta shut her down. What other choice did you have? Hall Brothers, we talked about them eliminating the Rammunition identity, and they've been teasing some stuff on their social media. On June 8th, there should be a big reveal, we're thinking, that could give us an idea of what this new identity is coming up. Who knows? I've seen Heavy D from those diesel guys out there in Utah. He was in a spot. There was a reference to the Goodyear blimp being missing and what looked to be a fighter jet pilot. I'm sure there's got to be some kind of fun and quirky, marketing thing that the people at Ram Trucks are coming up with here. But all I can say is they better have something really cool if they're going to redeem themselves for taking Rammunition away from us. So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know. It's like, but the good thing is, though, I mean, I don't want to make this sound in a bad light, but as sneaky as the Hall brothers are, I'm guessing it's going to be pretty sweet because they've had a long relationship with Dodge. So I think their input's probably pretty important to what they do as far as the monster truck side. So I think I'm just hoping that whatever they come up with is going to be pretty sweet. I give the Hall brothers credit for what they've done all these years and how they've extended this partnership as long as they have, because that, Kyle, as you know, sponsorships, and I know from my history working for other places, man, keeping sponsorship going as long as they have, that's a tough deal, man. And for them to, if they're going to continue this, and obviously they are, but to bring a new identity in, that's pretty impressive. And I got a feeling it's going to be good. I mean, that's all we can hope for. It's going to be good.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what they come up with.
Like that. I was going to say, just keep not.
No, totally. I'm excited about it.
Major corporate sponsor like that over these years is crazy.
Yes,
in monster trucks,
absolutely. Yeah.
And kind of the thing about it too is like it's not always performance based, right? So I want to address a little bit of criticism that I saw levied at the Halls, recently, and it was kind of to the point of like, why would Ram keep sponsoring them, because they're not out winning big races anymore, and they don't seem to charge as hard on the racetrack and things like that. And you can have that criticism if you want. Some of it's no doubt fair, I would say, but at the same time, there's so many other responsibilities that come with having a major corporate sponsor like that. And there's other things they have going on as well too. And plus they're trying to run a business still. They're a small business. Whatever their business model is, it might not entail running trucks the same way that the Zimmers are running their trucks. And you could talk about what kind of support each team has, what kind of ownership structure each team has. Every team's going to be different. I think if you saw, more of like a late 90s, early 2000s style Monster Jam show happening at Monster Jam rather than what the shows are now, then you'd probably see the Halls running a hell of a lot harder and a lot more aggressively trying to get racing wins, because that's just kind of what their DNA is. Now, you want to talk about the sponsorship side of it. From what I've observed, one of the hardest things about keeping a sponsor, yes, you got to keep them happy, and you got to perform, and you got to be on time to the events they want you at, and you take care of the Dodge dealers or the Firestone tire dealers or all those kind of different things. But sometimes you could do everything right, and then one person changes their job at corporate, whether they move on to a different role or they leave the company or they get fired or they laterally move to a different division, and then the incoming person so often wants to reshape this new department that they're in charge of now. They want to reshape that in their image of what they think needs to be there. So maybe outgo the monster trucks and outgo the drift cars and outgo the drag race program, and then in comes stock cars and in comes rally cars or whatever. You know what I mean? So for the monster truck program to be affordable enough for the Ram and Dodge brands that they've kept it, but to also be enough of a monetary investment that they still examined it every contract cycle and we're like, well, this isn't chump change we're throwing at these guys, but it is a really good value and it is an affordable program. And that's kind of a sweet spot that Mark and Tim seem like they've hit with Ram is being a good bang for the buck, but also, taking enough budget from Ram that they can still do cool stuff with it. I swear Tim told me one time, he's like, if you don't ask for enough, they're not going to take you seriously. If you tell them you can give them all these things and you only ask for $50,000 a year, they're going to laugh at you. Like, there's no way in hell you can do 30 Dodge dealer appearances a year for $50,000 and make the trailer look right and the truck look good. Absolutely. So, I mean, it is a true business exchange there. And I think, I was there really early on while they were doing that stuff. I mean, Raminator had only been around for a year by the time I got hired there. So, looking back now, I realize, gosh dang, I mean, I'm 40 now, and I think Mark was like 36 or maybe 37 when I got hired there. So I'm thinking, take 3 years back from where I am now. I mean, would I be comfortable going into Chrysler headquarters in Auburn Hills and asking what I needed to ask to get the sponsorship I needed? I mean, there was a lot of weight on those guys' shoulders, and they went from, doing it by themselves with one or two trucks forever. And then now all of a sudden they're trying to grow their operation, hire people and manage people and changing expectations. So anyways, here I go again on the soapbox, but the point is now, like you said, Frank, I mean, they've cultivated this relationship for so long that you want it to just keep going at this point. You're like, Ram, you'd be stupid to throw a relationship like this away as long as they've been with them.
Kyle, just like you said, it's like, and we've talked about this before on prior episodes that motorsports, they don't need to fight each other, right? So like NHRA, IndyCar, NASCAR, it's not all separate. It needs, because I mean, basically, motorsport. When you go to a hotel and you're clicking on the smart TV and you'll get it's sports. It goes across MLB, NFL, NHL, motorsports or racing. Everything is together on that. So I think, just like what you're talking about, the fact that the Hall brothers have had this deal for so long, all it does is help all motorsports, so it doesn't matter what kind of car you're racing or vehicle you're racing. It works out for everybody. The fact that they have maintained this relationship for so long is amazing. I mean, if you start looking through the different disciplines of motorsports, how many long-term sponsorships do you see? Now, you see in NASCAR right now what they're doing, there's cars that have 6, 8, 10 different sponsors for a 36-week series. Back in the day, Kyle, when we were growing up, there was the DuPont car, the Hooters car, the Valvoline car, the Good Wrench car. That's all we knew. So now you're dealing with the generation now, which is, of course, people nowadays are everything is me, now, right now. So they can't relate to the drivers. But the one thing that's been consistent in these long-term sponsorship, obviously with the Hall brothers, it's like, okay, everybody knows the Hall brothers are the Dodge guys. Plus or minus, it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to get to is that all motorsports long-term sponsorships are sweet because it just develops, recognition and long-term things that generationally people can understand. Because right now, I guarantee there's people right now that come through pit parties, 18, 19, 20 years old, that don't know who Jeff Gordon is, don't know who Dale Earnhardt is. They may know who they are, but they don't know what they were or what they meant to motorsports. And I think this thing the Hall brothers are doing by sticking sticking with Ram for as long as I have. And this new identity, I really hope it blows the roof off the monster truck industry and is really cool just for the sake of motorsports in general, you know?
I mean, they've always been really good at meeting and exceeding expectations when the time came for their trucks to appear outside of the monster truck industry and present a good face and a professional face. At corporate events or commercials or whatever was needed, we had to look sharp, and they've always done that. And there was a period of time when the American economy took a dump, at the end of 2007 heading into 2008. I mean, they basically lost their Dodge deal in an official capacity at the time. And some of the Dodge and Hemi stickers went missing off the trucks for a short period of time and things like that. But they, I guess, kind of like the Wood Brothers and NASCAR, kind of a comparison. I mean, there was definitely a time when Ford Motor Company wasn't as supportive of the 21 car as what you would think they would have been, given the loyalty the Woods had to Ford Motor Company. And kind of the same thing with the Halls. I think they realized that burning any kind of a bridge with Chrysler was not the way to go about it, but to still have some connectivity to that company and keeping that company posted on what they were doing and keeping the imagery of the trucks out there, not dumping those identities and switching to something else immediately. They ran an executioner body for a couple shows, but I mean, Raminator and Ramunition were still around, and then they weathered that storm, and then look, they get their deal back a couple years later, and I don't know all the details, after my time ended there. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a good thing that they've gotten where they're at, and they've done so much of that just by being professionally minded, by being racers at heart, and just being true to who they are. So, moving on a little bit from Hall Brothers, but it's a good segue because obviously I drove the Raminator ride truck for quite a bit of time while I was there. My ass and lower back can still attest to that. So I want to talk about ride truck safety for a minute here, but first I want to paint the picture of the Raminator ride truck as I knew it. It's changed. The old girl's changed a little bit since I last drove her. But that truck used to be called Pure Energy, and it was from out your way, Frank. In fact, Mike Vaughters built that truck
Really?
for the fellow that originally had it, if I'm not mistaken. And if I can find a photo, I'll drop it in here. But it was a green early 90s body style Ford truck. And then it might have had another identity switch, and then it became Automoller. And then Jeremy Dishman, that worked for the Halls and drove for them, he had bought it when it was already a ride truck and did a few ride truck gigs with it, and then ended up selling it to the Halls after he went to work there. And it was pretty clapped out by then, from what I understand. It had just been remade into the Raminator ride truck maybe like 6 months before I got there. Mark did a spectacular job. I mean, that truck looks like it was originally built probably in a hurry, would be my guess. And I can picture Mike, looking at the guy like, how much you want to spend on it? And the guy says, well, this is all I want to spend on it. All right, that's what you're going to get, So it was not the beauty queen that some of those old Black Stallion trucks were. So the goal was to make it look and feel kind of like a race truck. So it had a fiberglass front clip, fiberglass cab. It had a steel bed with the 8 plastic racing seats, and then a really substantial roll cage assembly in the bed, which we'll talk about roll cages and ride trucks here in a minute. And then some horribly inconvenient but ultimately quite safe traditional cam lock style racing lap belts for everybody to wear. So let me just paint you the picture of giving rides all day long in this ride truck for free. I hardly can remember ever money being exchanged for rides on the Raminator ride truck. It was usually appearing at a Dodge dealer or on behalf of Dodge giving rides for free. And you wouldn't believe how many kids and their families would get off that thing and then just do a 180-degree turn. Nobody else is here. We want to go for the run again. I've made so many laps for the same people at the same show in the Raminator ride truck. And, man, that thing was hot. It had a fire-breathing 528 cubic inch race gas drinking crate Hemi. Behind the Lexan, or rather right in front of the Lexan. So that thing was like, it was a hot box. No creature comforts. I mean, it had a lot of the less fun or refined parts that you would see on a race truck, I guess. The real, throttle pedal and all that kind of stuff. So the front link bars underneath were meant to look like 4 link bars kind of for aesthetics, but they were not like, they didn't have any kind of hydraulic action to them, like most of the race trucks had back in the day. So as the leaf springs needed to move through their arc, those bars kind of fought that, if I recall, mainly from feeling all 3 of my chins jiggle every time I ran over a bump with that thing. And it also caused substantial jiggling in the back of the truck too. I don't think I had a rear view mirror to soak up all that fun with, but I'm poking fun at the truck because it was never designed really to be an all day long ride giving truck. Like, I've seen some pretty slick ride trucks out there where, like, I'm just longing for that supple of a suspension like that ride truck has, or a big comfy captain's chair with air conditioning like that ride truck has. And the Raminator RT didn't have any of that. But what the Raminator RT did have was a really kick-ass safety apparatus for the riders. Never mind the closing tailgate on the back, but a full roll cage assembly, big halo bar. I mean, Mark built that stuff to withstand. I mean, you probably could have made a pass in that truck, wadded her up, and yes, somebody in the bed would have spilled their bag of souvenirs and dumped their ice cream cone, but they would have survived the roll. And we never ran the truck hard enough to, ever cause any kind of concern. But nevertheless, all it takes is one freak accident, right? And unfortunately, the video that we're looking at right now was in Arizona a few weeks ago at an event out there. And we're not shitting on the promoter, and we're not crapping on the team with the ride truck, but we are going to call a spade here, guys. A bench seat, and in the photos I saw, looked like one belt stretched across multiple people. And we don't even know if the person discharged the lap belt themselves or not, or what, but all I know is somebody falling out of a moving monster ride truck, guys. That's bad for all of us as an industry, not just that truck, not just that promoter, and not just that fan.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say, you said it perfectly, Kyle. I mean, no, you said it perfectly, Kyle. It's like, man, I mean, I know we have a ride truck at Monster Trucks Limited, the Stone Crusher ride truck, and it's got the bucket seats, and each belt is independent. We check it every time it goes out, make sure the belts are operable. We do the best we can to make sure that truck is 100% every time it goes out. So, I mean, Kyle, as a ride truck driver, I've done it, you've done it. So, I don't care who's loading the people in the truck, and, say, okay, put your belts on. The driver's the last line of defense to make sure that the belts are on properly and everything's good. So, man, I mean, that situation, what do you say? It's one of those things, but man, it comes down to, I think the ride trucks need to have a seat for each rider and a belt for each rider. And I think that's probably the safest way to go, especially like what you talked about with the Hall brothers, with the cage that is built, probably not overbuilt, but built to withstand a truck rolling over, because God forbid, So yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, Kyle. But like I said, I think the way to go for ride trucks is a seat for each rider and belts for each rider. I think that's the only way to do it.
I just don't understand what's the problem with having a roll cage in the bed. I mean, material wise, it's not like you're bending it up because you're crashing all the time and things like that. I mean, you build it and it's there and you're good to go. Like, you shouldn't ever be using it. But I mean, if I'm a fan in the stands with half a brain, I'm thinking, yeah, I know it's just a ride truck, but if you guys get a big roll cage around yourselves in your race trucks, how come we don't have even rudimentary safety equipment on this truck that's giving us rides? And, a lot of ride trucks seem to not have, planetary hubs on them. So they're running some kind of a smaller stock spindle and things like that. We've seen spindle failures on ride trucks. We've seen link bar and suspension failures on ride trucks. We know ride trucks have rolled over at least once. So accidents can happen. And I just wonder how many bullets are we going to try and dodge as an industry before, we step back and take stock of the fact that the people we're endangering with no safety holds, or with trucks running, close to people with no barriers in the way, or literally people in monster trucks that are not belted in safely or thoroughly enough, or no protection overhead or on the sides. Anything can happen, and we understand that. You could have the most safest, best prepared ride truck in the world, and something awful could still happen. But I think you want to be able to look back in those moments and say, boy, we tried everything we could try, though, if God forbid something bad happened. Looker, how do you see that? Because, I mean, you see a lot of ride trucks, through your summertime events with Throwdown and stuff like that. I mean, where do you stand on this?
Honestly, it just comes down to having to put in the work into what you're doing. So whether it's the pre-planning at an event, taking that second and third once over before you start going to make sure everything's good, or with a ride truck, putting in the material, the hours, days, weeks, months kind of stretch, but days, weeks to get the truck where it should be, instead of just slapping a pickup bed on top of a homemade frame and throwing some bucket seats in the back of it. Maybe think it out a little more, spend the time, spend the money, make it the right way. That's what you should do. And when you were saying how, even someone with half a brain is going to look at it, the problem is even someone that does have a full brain, they're not around these trucks and all the time. And even people that see trucks once a year, you guys will understand. Anybody that's worked at an event will understand this one. The security guard that's worked at the arena for 30 years and says, oh, I know what I'm doing around these trucks. Because they see it once a year for 30 years, they think they can stand where they shouldn't. And it's like, no, dude. They don't have the same mind as we do when they're watching these trucks. And an example, and this goes for ride truck safety or just event safety. One thing that happened this weekend in Wilmot, well, nothing happened. But so we were starting the trucks in the corners, and we had the ambulance and a couple people from the track would usually park up at the top of turn 4 to watch the show. And where we've done it in the past, it was fine. Well, with the starting line being there, it was not fine. And the guys that were there were very reasonable and great to work with. So I had to go over and I said, hey, we're actually starting the trucks here. And they were like, oh yeah, that's okay. And in my mind, I'm like, no, it's not even remotely okay. But you're not going to say that because they're polite and respectful and they're racing guys. They just are not around monster trucks. So you have to move them around.
Right.
Just because you're 20 foot away from a monster truck, you're not okay. And just because you're sitting with a lap belt in the bed of a monster truck, you may not be okay. And it's up to us, people working the show, the drivers, the event staff, anybody that's working with the show really should have their head kind of on a swivel and be kind of taking stock of what's going on. And all it takes is one person to say, hey, that doesn't really look cool. And, a couple other people maybe didn't notice it and kind of break the chain with those events. And I think with the ride truck, it's more
I agree.
The lead up to it than it is the actual what's going on. But yeah, you just have to put the extra time and effort in, I think is what comes down to it.
No, I agree. And I think a big part of it too. What's up?
I said that was long-winded.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's what we're here for. God knows I do that every freaking segment, it seems. Yeah, Frank has a call he's answering right now. We'll leave it at that. But, my point about the ride truck thing is it's, again, I've had always strong opinions about ride trucks in particular. I mean, the MTRA rulebook at one point, and it may still, I don't know, had a whole segment about ride truck safety in it, including, roll cage specs and dimensions and, things like that. To me, it's a no-brainer in the sense, if you're an owner operator of a ride truck, I want this thing to look good. I want it to be marketable. I want it to look inviting and appealing for people to ride on. I mean, you don't ride on a roller coaster that has inferior restraints on it, right? Just because it happens to be there. Well, people are riding on ride trucks that have inferior seats and restraints on them just because it happens to be there. And this is the one show a year they go to or something like that. And they're just trying to maximize their time and acquiesce what their kids are asking for. The kids want to ride on the ride truck, so we get to take them on the ride truck. But we're taking fan and truck interaction and potential chaos and mixing it up in such close, literally quarters right there. that to me, there needs to be a better effort on the part of all ride truck owners to make sure that they've got, effective and visually, identifiable safety equipment on these trucks. Everybody's trying to run their business, and I understand that. But man, if I would never put my kids in my family in the back of a ride truck that had a bench seat and one seat belt to go over multiple people. I mean, at that point, it feels like you're just trying to herd cattle into the truck and squeeze as many rides and as many dollars out of the people as what you can. And I know, again, that sounds like I'm being a jerk to the people that are running the truck and trying to run their business. I would certainly hope and think that they don't have malevolent ideas like that. But at what point, do you not ask yourself with a setup like that, man, if my insurance guy, which I hope they have one, if my insurance guy shows up and sees this, what are they going to think of that? Well, kind of to your point, Matt, they might not think anything of it. I don't know. These things are so unique and so quirky, and there's so many ins and outs to them. And we've been self-policing in so many ways for so many years that, the outside world just doesn't look at us with the same attention to detail that we sometimes maybe need to look at ourselves with a little bit more. So I'll get off that soapbox, but, I think we're all in agreement there. We want to see ride truck owners profitable. We want to see them out there. When I see a show with 3 or 4 ride trucks running at it, I think badass. Let's get it going. Sell some rides, pay the light bill. Totally understand and get all of that. But just remember, the people that we're potentially endangering in the back of the truck are the ones paying all the light bills for you as an operator and as a team. So it serves us all well to take care of those people just on moral grounds, but certainly also from a business standpoint. You don't want to be harming or putting undue risk on your customer or your consumer for that stuff. So we'll tie a big fat bow on the roll cage of that discussion right there. And I'll probably be on the Bag from Dick's segment for a ride truck owner that doesn't like me now because I have an opinion on fan safety, but what are you going to do? Yeah, I sell beer for a living, not monster truck rides, so is what it is. Hey, real quick, before we get to our intermission that Frank's old man bladder couldn't quite make it to. Had to do it. Had to say it. I was trying to get us to the truck stop, Frank. I was trying to get us to the truck stop restroom, Frank, and you just had to step back in the sleeper with the jug. All right. At least this tractor has a sleeper on it. That's all I can say. It's the way she goes, boys. I saw some things, might have done some things. Let's talk real quick, some off monster topics here on News, Weather, and Sports, some other motorsport stuff. We'll get to our post, as promised, our post Indy 500 reactions and takeaways. But just touching on a couple more recent headlines, Ryan Blaney breaks through at Nashville finally last night for his first Cup win of the season. Dominant performance by the 12 car and Blaney on the Nashville Super Speedway, which I heard somebody say, why the hell is it called a super speedway? Well, because Nashville Speedway at the fairgrounds is smaller, but it's known as Nashville Speedway. So you can't have 2 Nashville Speedways, so one of them's got to be super.
Nashville Speedway 2.
But yeah, exactly. Revenge of the Speedway, Part 2. So I actually got to announce a Monster Truck Challenge show there for Richie Schaefer in 2008. And your boss, Frank, driving Stone Crusher, was the winner that night. We touched on that race between Raminator and Stone Crusher in a past episode. But that was a barn burner of a race on a really simple but really fun track. So I can't help but look at the infield last night at that track and think, God dang, that looked really good with a bunch of painted crush cars and dirt ramps out there. But so Blaney breaks through, gets his first win in the season. Here's a stat for you guys. So there's been 14 races in the Cup season so far this year, and through no fault of his own, Blaney has had 5 DNFs this year. 5 races out of 14, and he's still 7th in points and now locked into the playoffs with a win. So there's potential and there's speed on that team. They've just they've had who's our guy with Leadfoot? Ron Dennis. They've had Ron Dennis luck this year, except they brought fast cars. Ron Dennis didn't bring a fast car, but he did have bad luck.
And their wheels have stayed on, I think.
I don't know if Yeah, I mean, Leadfoot would knock wheels off faster than Blaney's pit crew would when they're intentionally trying to do it. Oh man, the first and only monster truck to ever break a spindle backing off the trailer, probably. I don't know that happened. If you're Ron Dennis and you're listening, sorry for that. So yeah, that's what's happening over on the NASCAR side. We'll talk about Larson trying to do the double and how that sort of applies to both of those motorsports disciplines here in a minute. Also yesterday, McLaren carving their way through the Formula One field this year, looking like Mercedes from a handful of years ago, or Red Bull in recent years. Piastri and Norris combined for another 1-2 McLaren finish, leaving Verstappen. How do the English commentators say? Oh, he's thrown his toys out the pram. Like he, I don't know if you saw what happened, but later on in the race, he was told to give a place back to Mercedes driver George Russell because of a question about how Max overtook him. And Max pretty much just does the F1 equivalent of a stock car door slam and just bangs wheels with him pretty late in the race. And thankfully, they were both able to continue. He later took blame for it, but an angry Max Verstappen someplace other than first place on the track might be my favorite version of Max Verstappen. Like it is instant entertainment. So yeah, I don't know. Did either of you guys happen to see that at all?
I didn't.
I did not. I was busy driving in the dark. Go ahead.
Yeah, same. I was going to say, to quote Will Ferrell, he's an angry elf.
Yes. By the way, however this shakes out with the lag on our recording platform here, you guys by now are probably already used to dealing with it. It is what it is. I'm in Wyoming, which some people say that state doesn't even exist. Matt Looker is 2 cave doors down from the upstate New York version of Sasquatch. And Frank, despite living on the East Coast, they're still attempting to wire power and firm plumbing to that area of the intercoastal. So just bear with us. We'll all get through this together. I mean, my mail still gets dropped off by a horse half the time. So, but yes, he was an angry elf. Verstappen was, and I'm loving it right now. But he'll probably strike back and just win the next race with an outright ass whooping. I did see that Lance Stroll, one of the drivers for the Aston Martin Formula One team, he dropped out of the race weekend before the race started on Sunday, and because of the way F1's rules work with who qualifies the car and things like that, that car was not allowed to run. And at first, you might just be like, "Oh yeah, whoop-de-doo!" So an F1 car didn't win. Well, what makes this really compelling and interesting to me is, his dad is the primary owner of the team. I mean, the kid started out funded by his dad, driving for other teams, and then and I'm really nutshelling this here, but then his dad basically goes and buys an automaker and their Formula One team so his kid can race there. And he's had a lot of criticism over the years for his abilities or lack thereof and decision making, different things like that. But he did suffer a wrist injury last year. It might not have even been on track related, if I'm recalling correctly, but he was complaining of just immense pain over this race weekend with his wrist and his hands. So they pulled him out of the car. There's already speculation that there's more to it than what they're saying here. But just think about this. There's only 20 cars on a Formula One grid currently. Now, that'll change next year or the year after. But for now, there's only 20 cars allowed to race. There's only 10 teams fielding those 20 cars. And you can imagine there's a massive amount, even for the 20th place finisher, there's a lot of money on the line for making sure that you're running those cars in terms of participation, payout, sponsor time on TV. Like there's all these tangibles and intangibles. So what I ask of you guys is, can you imagine the financial hit that a team must be taking to willingly park one of their cars for a race weekend?
I can't even imagine. I mean, you got to think, even a backmarker NASCAR team or IndyCar team, at least the car will be on TV for X amount of time, like for, showing the grid and the starting lineup, that kind of stuff. It's like, even with that, it's like that's got to be worth something to that sponsor. And also, too, even if they, if they're mixed up in mid-pack or whatever, but if it's good racing, if it's, passing and, a bunch of stuff going on, you're still getting, you may not be up front, but you're still getting the exposure. See, that's what I don't understand.
Yeah. The level of money that's involved in Formula One I almost think like they couldn't have had a doppelganger for him and just passed him off. Like, hey, you're not the backup driver. You're the backup person that's going to act like this guy when he can't make it because we have so many millions of dollars per weekend that we're involved in this. Like, that blows my mind.
They needed a.
I don't know like the ins and outs of it enough to know the mechanics of it, but I just can't wrap my head around them not running like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, just, I suppose it's FIA and Formula One's rules about, they can't qualify the car with one driver and then send it to the grid and put a different driver in. And I'm sure there's, more than a handful of mechanical, issues or logistical issues that come with swapping a backup driver in, more so than you'd see with a stock car or certainly with a monster truck. I mean, you know what? You're a little guy filling in for a big guy. Throw a pillow in the seat. It'll be fine. Like, what I mean? Like, I raced in another dude's fire suit and another dude's chair for a bunch of years in a Bigfoot truck. But, these guys are obviously more akin to pilots than they are race car drivers. That being said, just for the fun of it, I believe I would have dressed my backup driver in Lance Stroll's driving gear, including helmet and everything, and just told him to act like the Stig from Top Gear. Don't acknowledge anyone. Don't say anything. Get in the car. Drive fast. Don't die. Like that. This is Rance Stroll, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, the Stig, the green Stig. So, yeah, that didn't happen for those guys. So that'll be interesting to see. Backup driver Felipe Drugovich may have to bail on the 24-hour Le Mans driving gig that he has to serve his relief driver duties for Aston Martin at the next Grand Prix, which I believe is in Montreal. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But getting on to a couple more things before we reach IndyCar, and this is probably a good segue for it. Fox absolutely slaying the IndyCar coverage, in my opinion. And I want to hear what Frank thinks on that here in a second. But what I really want to bring up is, especially last night, the second of 5 races carried by Amazon Prime for the Cup Series this year, they are killing it. I mean, we're talking really lengthy, in-depth pre-race and great race coverage. I think Adam Alexander is kind of the lead color guy in the booth. He's doing a spectacular job, and I love hearing Dale Earnhardt Jr. back on the broadcast. I think he's great with Steve Letarte. But what I really like is we actually get a post-race now. On network TV, it's always a hurry to wrap up at the end of the hour, the end of the half-hour block to get on to the next piece of programming. Where Amazon, I mean, it was hour and a half post race for these last 2 races. So if like in my case, a driver I love wins last night, I'm soaking up every minute of the post race, regardless of who they're talking to. But looking at strictly from production guys, like the camera work, the number of camera angles they had, the quality of graphics, the flow of everything. I think I read a stat earlier today that said there was only like 6 minutes of commercial time where there wasn't side by side, at least on the screen. And then of course, towards the tail end of the race, they went, commercial free. So I think Amazon is absolutely killing it. I don't know if you guys have seen any of that, but I know you've both seen, Fox coverage of IndyCar this year. So Frank, I think now's the time you and I have been waiting for since Sunday evening on the 24th or 25th, whatever day that was, the 500 happened. Let's talk about, Fox's coverage of IndyCar, what our takeaways from the 500 were, but most importantly, let's talk about the real race that happened in Indianapolis. Let's talk about the Wienermobile 500 that happened, huh? How about that?
Now, Kyle, that was genius. Whoever came up with that deserves a raise and gets a couple days off. I mean, that was pretty ridiculous. I mean, I was able to I didn't get to see it live. I watched the replay. But I watched it in its entirety, and it was amazing. The liberties that the announcers took, and they were using Hinchcliffe and all the main guys were doing it. And some of the things they were saying just blew my mind. But it was hilarious because they were saying it, but it could easily apply to what they were describing. So it's like, okay, if you just shut the screen off and heard him say it, you're like, oh my God, are they saying that? But then as you're watching it, but by the way, though, the way it was done was beautiful, and the fact that the crowd, because on that day, all they did, I think, Kyle, did they practice that day? Or I don't think they did anything that day on the track, did they?
No, in fact, the 6 Glizzy-mobiles, as my 7-year-old calls them,
Yes.
the 6 or 7 Glizzy-mobiles making laps were the only on-track activity. I feel like I think they did the pit crew challenge. They did the pit crew challenge, but there was no like full speed stuff on the track.
It was Legends Day, so nothing goes on the track, because Carb Day happened the day before, so Friday before, so. So it was genius, and I had to laugh because I'm just not, I was in Michigan with family and just kind of trying to catch it here and there and watching the replay, and I had to laugh when they said the driver of the one Wienermobile was Captain Glizzy. I'm like, genius,
yeah,
and they're wearing fire suits, and I had to laugh at Townsend Bell saying their safety equipment was fire suits and trucker hats. It was perfectly done. And at one point, the one thing, Kyle, that made me laugh during the broadcast of that was when Townsend Bell said, he goes, well, when they came through turn 2 about 20 minutes ago.
Yes.
Done.
I was just going to say that when Townsend Bell's like, I never would have thought half an hour ago when they passed through turn 2 that we'd see a pass for the lead in turn 3. Oh yeah. No, the Looker, if you, Matt, if you have not watched the broadcast of it on YouTube, you owe it to yourself because it is an announcing masterclass. Like the double entendres and the tongue-in-cheek jokes, but they never broke. Like they did not break. And even when Will Buxton's like, "Oh, watch out heading into turn 3, nobody wants a slippery wiener," and I mean, there was no laughter from the broadcast booth or anything. They were just so dialed in. It was 2 painfully slow laps. I will say that. I wish they'd have cut them loose to open them up a little bit more. But obviously you understand why they don't, right? I mean, judging from the grid walk, those drivers were probably barely able to handle those things in a tight parking lot, never mind potentially high speeds at Indy,
Well, what I thought too, Kyle, was really funny is just the way it was done, and you could tell. Obviously, I mean, being in motorsports, what was going on as far as the last lap pass and all that stuff. So it's like there was communication, I'm sure, but I don't want to ruin it, but I'm sure there was. But the way they did it, it was so well done, and I don't want to name the company, but I mean, that was a genius deal to take a day that not much is happening at the Speedway and make it such a predominant thing. Because I know people that don't care about racing at all. We all do, right? But my sister,
and they're assholes and they're wrong and we shouldn't spend time with
right. My sister's like, what are you watching? I go, well, it's the Wiener 500. She goes, oh my God. So locked in.
Yeah.
But it's so ridiculous. But
is this on MGM Bet? I got to put it in my bet before the race starts. I got Chicago dog by 2 bun lengths.
Get a 4-leg parlay going on the old Wiener 500. Yeah, but no, man, it was awesome. And I thought the way, like you said, Kyle, the way the announcers handled it was absolute genius. They hit a gold mine with this almost on accident.
I'm gonna have to blur out Matt Looker clipping his cuticles there. I'll drop the on the bottom of the screen.
It was bothering me so bad. I'm sorry.
That's awesome. I'm leaving it in.
I was trying to be slick, and I just couldn't. I couldn't leave it alone. I almost thought I heard you mutter to yourself, "This fucking guy here." Like, oh yeah. No, that's great. Welcome to Bottom Dead Center. all things are in bounds here with us. No, I love it. There's a reason why we're not on ESPN. So, no, to your point, Frank. I mean, my daughters were laughing their butts off. I mean, they watched probably more complete laps of the Wiener 500 than they did of the Indy 500, because on that day we had people over and there was all this stuff going on. They were in and out and in and out and in and out. But I mean, for the Glizzy 500 there, I mean, they were fixated on that. It was spectacular. The double entendres were great. Just the money they spent on fire suits alone was really impressive. I mean, every driver. And what was the Frank? What was the joke that Hinch made?
about the one that had the fake smoke coming out the side, and he's like, I bet that passenger mechanic is deep into the casing of that machine trying to fix it. Like they must have had a full sheet of jokes and references to dive off into.
Yeah, I saw clips of that. I didn't see the whole thing. And, oh, man, I need to watch it. Looks like we lost Frank.
Oh, God, we lost Frank again. We lost Frank.
We lost Frank while we were talking
that's
about
all.
the hot dog race.
Yeah. We lost Frank while talking about Frank-shaped vehicles.
Right.
Not that kind of Frank-shaped vehicle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, man. Well, hey, perfect time right here. We'll call intermission right here on the show. We'll take a little bit of break. We'll come back. We'll get Frank back on the line. We'll talk Indy 500 reactions, and then we'll get into our round tire discussion, which I haven't even gotten to bring up yet on the show, but we're in for a really fun, really casual round tire discussion this evening, and we call it What Happened to ... question mark. That's what the segment is called. It must always be said in that exact way because that's very precisely what it is called. So we'll be back after a quick break here on Bottom Dead Center. What's up, everybody? We're back from intermission on possibly the most ridiculous episode of Bottom Dead Center yet, but we're having a blast tonight. Just call it Casual Monday here on the OSMT YouTube channel of Bottom Dead Center. Joined once again by Matt Looker, rejoined by Frank Krimmel. He's paid his internet bill, and a fresh wheelbarrow of internet has been delivered to his small thatch-roofed hut in the tiny hamlet of wherever you're at in Virginia, North Carolina. One of those two. But we got Frank back on. We've officially made it 0 episodes in season 1 so far of not having tech issues on Bottom Dead Center, which is pretty awesome, actually. We've all dealt with it. It is what it is. So, Frank, we lost you very briefly at the end of part 1, so we held off on the IndyCar takeaways. So let's throw it to you here in a second and talk about kind of your takeaways and impressions from how the Indy 500 worked out. I know our prediction we both had of Alex Palou being a prime contender for the win certainly came true. But real quick, let's talk about the streets of Detroit real fast that just happened over the weekend. Santino Ferrucci got a podium finish, his first podium finish in IndyCar. So I know as an AJ Foyt fan that has to make you pretty happy. Although the news broke just before we started recording that they actually got hit with a tech violation post-race and inspection having to do with the weight of the car, but they were allowed to keep their P2 finish, so that was the good news for them. But being a Michigander yourself, have you gotten to catch up on any of the streets of Detroit action over the weekend?
I have. My IndyCar history with Detroit was obviously with the AJ Foyt team and Belle Isle, where they ran the race for years prior to moving downtown where they are now. But to see the penalty that was brought on by the IndyCar officials, when you look at it, when you get down to brass tacks, it's like they were robbing Peter to pay Paul, but it was all unintentional. So they didn't lose the position, but they lost points. So he was going to be after that finish, he was moved from 15th to 10th in points. Now he's back down to 14th. But I really see some momentum with the Foyt team. I mean, obviously Malukas finishing second at the 500, and Ferrucci passing 19 cars to get up to second place, starting 21st. I mean, it was a lot of not fuel saving, but pit strategy and all this and that, cautions all figured into it. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Where you finish is where you finish. So I think they're going to carry that momentum. I think they're going to where are they going to Iowa? No, they're going to St. Louis next week, or not next week, 2 weeks. So I really think you go into an oval. The Foyt team has showed they're strong on ovals, so I think it's going to be cool. But man, so much went on in that Indy 500, especially with McLaughlin wrecking in the warm-up lap.
Man.
I mean, I'm telling you, Kyle, as you know, and being a motorsports guy, it's so crazy what things like that happen instantly, and it's so crazy. But man, I'm telling you, that race was insane from start to finish. It was, but as a motorsports, and not even IndyCar fan, motorsports fan, if you don't, because there's a lot of people that don't watch IndyCar all year long, but they tune in at Indy 500, and the Indy 500 is, we've talked about this in our prior broadcasts. It's like Indy 500 is something unlike any other motorsport event. So just how it ended and how it shaked out after the penalties and all that, it's pretty amazing. And I'm telling you what, if anybody watching this has a chance to go to the Indy 500, you have to do it. Even if you don't like Indy cars, doesn't matter. Just go to the Indy 500 to experience the whole thing.
I think, one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the 500 was it was as chaotic as you would have probably expected it to be, given how chaotic all of the run up to it was. We saw chaos in the Weenie 500, and that should have tipped us off to the fact that there was going to be chaos on Sunday too. Sun's out, buns out on Sunday Funday, but it was a wild one, man. McLaughlin, he broke my heart, man. I mean, we were standing around just totally amped for the start of the race, and they're warming their tires. And for those that might not have seen it or didn't understand what happened, Scotty McLaughlin, the one Penske car out of the three that didn't get penalized for the attenuator infraction we talked about on our last episode, starting in P12, so third row or fourth row starting spot, whatever, great starting position,
right in the hunt.
Yep, right in the hunt, and a handful of lesser experienced drivers ahead of him that he probably could have capitalized on pretty quick. Obviously, these cars, carry a sort of a balance and a weight bias on them to, make them turn left, because that's what you got to do on an oval. And as you're zigzagging the car back and forth, trying to warm the tires, and you're not just warming them, you're also cleaning them of debris that you've picked up, under parade laps, whether it's, little balls of rubber, from other tires or dust or anything that would prevent that tire from being optimal for the start of the race. You're trying to get all that stuff broke loose from that tire, and just the wrong application of throttle and steering at the same time sends him crashing into the inside wall on the front stretch, spinning out into the turn one grass. And at this point in the race, we'd already had a bit of a minor rain delay due to some sprinkles falling on the track, which, they were calling for clear weather all around the track at that very moment, but it was just this tiny little pocket. And I don't know if that was the racing gods' way of saying there was no way in hell that Kyle Larson was going to have a successful and complete double. But unfortunately, that little bit of a rain delay was going to be enough in all likelihood to force him out of the race early if he was going to make it to Charlotte in time to complete the double by running the NASCAR Coca-Cola 600 later that night. So then talk about Larson. I don't know if you guys saw this, but obviously he was in a frustrated mindset with the small rain delay, knowing that it was kind of screwing his, chances at a complete double over. But then Scotty Mack dumps his, yellow submarine into the infield there, and Larson's going by and giving him a thumbs up, like in a sarcastic way, which, Larson later explained to himself in his frustration, and, his gesture was, out of that frustration. But that's pretty brutal right there. I mean, he was signaling to Scotty Mack like, yeah, this is really going to do me in. But it was a bad look for Larson on the internet, because there was a lot of reels that made it look like he was just teasing Scotty Mack for dumping the car. And then, of course, Larson wads his stuff up, later on in the race, which what is that, Frank? That's the third McLaren Formula One car, essentially, or Formula One Indy car that Larson managed to crash in the month of May, which is pretty rough.
It is pretty rough. And then you look into what he did in the 600. If that, when he wrecked, because he wrecked a couple times in the 600, so it's like after the second one, I've been like, okay, let's
we're done.
let's shut her down. He was having a rough day, man, and I felt bad because I know what I understand as a driver, not to the level of what he is, but trying to complete that is it's an amazing feat. But man, going through the whole progression of the 500 and trying to get through that with the delays and all that, because I was in Michigan watching it in my sister's garage, and watching it, I was watching the clock tick, and as you guys know in motorsports, minutes feel like seconds, and I guarantee for him, he's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? As long as it went on, it had to have felt like this day there was no way it was going to happen. But then finally, when they dropped the green flag, it looked like it was going to happen. But then once he wrecked, we knew it was going to happen because he was out. Yep. But man, it's just a crazy deal. But the Indy 500 itself, as always, was amazing. Kyle, do you agree?
I agree. And Palou winning on paper should make it sound like it was a boring Indy 500. Palou wins, Larson crashed, it was shocker. Not. You know what I mean? And that was not the case at all. Palou was far from guaranteed any kind of a win until extremely late in the race. I think he was benefited by the fact that cars around him were on maybe slightly variant strategies that didn't make them quite as aggressive or able to attack, or it was strictly driver experience, of some of these guys around him. I think had you been able to have, a new Garden or a Dixon or somebody like that, or even a Takuma Sato up there pursuing him, then it could have shook out a little bit different. I think the effect the hybrid system has on the cars' balance was kind of frustrating to me. They were pretty ill-handling cars. And that kind of brings me to my next point, too. And Looker, you're kind of outside of the realm of nerdiness that Frank and I have for open wheel racing. So actually, I want your opinion on this. But from the outside, knowing what you know about motorsport and business and things like that, as hyper-specific as the training and the preparation regimen is for high-level motorsports, be it Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar, is it really something worth the time and money at this point for a guy like Larson to even attempt the double, knowing that it's probably going to be a failure to some extent or the other? Like, is it even really worth it anymore after these two failed attempts?
So I think that goes back to kind of a philosophical level. Monster Truck Podcast getting into philosophy. That's a good one, right? Do you shoot for the stars or do you do what's comfortable?
Yeah.
Like doing that double, there's only been a handful of people that...
Nietzsche, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. So do you shoot for the stars or do you do what's comfortable? Only a few people have been able to even complete the double. He has the opportunity. He has the experience in open wheel cars and obviously NASCAR. I don't know. I feel like it's more of... I would question his mindset after crashing out of both races. That's got to be incredibly rough on the psyche of a racer to crash out of two of the biggest events back to back like that. So I would understand if he just was like, you know what, I'm good. We're not going to try to top the embarrassment and the disappointment of that again. But if he wanted to again, I don't see why that would be a bad thing. If he's got the drive to do it and he's got, I don't know like how much of his own personal finances went into it, but if you have the backers or the finances on your own to do it, obviously it's not his own money paying for all of it, but you know what I'm saying? If you have the ability to and the resources, I wouldn't say that's a bad idea.
I think he's just one of the very, very, very few guys that could even realistically pull off the attempt.
Exactly.
Because he is so versatile. Mm-hmm. I would call him maybe the most versatile race car driver in the world right now. I still don't know that I would call him the best race car driver in the world right now. I know we touched on this in the last or 2 episodes ago. He's flirting with the idea of being the best race car driver in the world. But I think there's 2 key things keeping him from definitively having that title. One is, like I said, all these main disciplines of racing have become so hyper focused and detail oriented that if he left NASCAR, I firmly believe within a couple seasons of IndyCar, he'd probably be, dominating over there to some extent, like what he's doing in Cup, if he was able to strictly just apply himself to that lifestyle, that mindset, that training regimen, all of those things. I think he appreciates variety and being a versatile driver too much to completely solely focus himself to pursuing a single championship or even a single specific event win like the 500. So I think that's kind of out of the cards for him. The other thing that I think is hurting him is just his willingness to almost casually flirt with the boundaries of whatever track he's on. On a dirt track where maybe there's not a wall or there's a big cushion built up and he can, really drive that car up in there and utilize the cushion to his advantage. That's one thing. But you see the line he flirts with at a place like, Miami Homestead where he rips the fence there, or at Darlington where he rips the fence. But I mean, that guy wrecks a lot of race cars too. Where Ryan Blaney has a lot of DNFs because of things that seem to be out of his control, Larson seems to have his DNFs from his own mistakes. Now, granted, he's pushing the limits more than pretty much anybody else is, so I don't discount that. I'm not shitting on Larson for that. But I think, just like we said earlier, perception is so much of everything that even if other fellow drivers are still wanting to call him perhaps the best race car driver in the world, the perception is not going to be that when he's, wrecking so many cars in the month of May that he actually has to go to hendrickcars.com to get his next automobile. So he's got a ways to go before he's probably going to be able to claim that title in any definitive way. I just question for the amount of money that it's cost, how much of that resource could be put back into the 5-car or the entire HMS program, to compete for what his main job is, which is a NASCAR title. Now, he may make an idiot out of me and go win the championship this year, and it doesn't matter how bad he did at Charlotte or how many cars he wrecked at Indy. But to your point, Matt, that's a little bit of a, it kind of screws with your mind a little bit on that plane ride, I'm sure, from Indy to Charlotte, thinking, my God, I've wrecked that car 3 times, and now I got to go run 600 miles tonight.
I think that I will say that if you want to cement yourself as being the best overall, you need to focus on each one individually. So, like, I actually used to be really into Indy cars in, like, the mid-'90s when Tony Stewart was driving the Glidden car. And he was first in IndyCar, then he went to NASCAR, and now he's in NHRA. Obviously he did the double, but for him to be considered one of the best drivers of all time, he's focusing on it in spurts. So, okay, he's Indy, now he's NASCAR, now he's getting into drag racing. So I would almost say for Larson to really be the best, if he went and did IndyCar for 2-3 seasons, then went back and tried the double. I think that might be more the ticket from my non-experienced self doing that.
I think he's probably able to, like, if he transitioned from stock cars to IndyCar and then found great success over there, like you said, and then gears up to do the double. I mean, I still think it's got to be a little harder driving an IndyCar than it is a stock car, just in terms of overall difficulty and raw talent required and reflexes and things like that. So I think the move to go away from stock car racing, focus on IndyCar racing, get really good, and then try and do a successful double. I think Indy's the bigger hurdle of the two. Now, granted, there's probably a higher likelihood of crashing out in theory of the 600 just because stock car racing's, a full contact sport. Are we going to see that from him? I don't think so. I think there's the sun's still shining on stock car racing for him, and there's a lot of hay to be made while that sun is shining. So I think that's where we're going to see him stay, but I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a break from the double. I don't know if it'll be a forever break necessarily, but I definitely think he will take a break from it. And I don't know who else, you would realistically see attempt that. I mean, Toyota doesn't really have any kind of involvement in IndyCar racing, and I don't know if, Joe Gibbs and Toyota are willing to foot the bill and the risk of sending somebody like Christopher Bell, who I think is probably talented enough, given enough time and support to do well at Indy and at Charlotte. I think about, a guy like Ryan Blaney that I'm a homer for. He's made jokes about telling Roger Penske he wants to try and drive an IndyCar, but I don't know that Ryan's necessarily the driver that's going to go out and be hyper successful trying to run the double. I think his background is so rooted in stock car racing, and you look at him, he's not out goofing off on Tuesday and Wednesday night running World of Outlaws or high limits races or anything like that. He's just so rooted in stock car racing. I don't know that the transition would work necessarily as well for him, but I could be wrong. I mean, look at Scotty Mack. He was a supercars, V8 supercars champion multiple times over in Australia. And the thought is he's going to come up here and Penske's going to put him, in a stock car, and he's going to go whip everybody's butt. And then he goes and gets put in an IndyCar straight away and is a race winner there. So, it could prove it wrong, but wrapping up the Indy talk here, Frank, tell us, how excited were you seeing your AJ Foyt guys running so close to the front late in that race?
Man, I'll tell you what, Santino Ferrucci led a couple laps, and obviously David Malukas, unbelievable. I mean, just the way he ran, and just excited for the whole Foyt team, especially with my connection to Rob Grossman, who worked for AJ Foyt with the King Crunch, Scott Stevens connection. I had connection with that group, and still stay in touch with people from that operation. So just to see a team like AJ Foyt Racing, I mean, not trying to cut them any saying anything negative, but they're not Penske, they're not Ganassi, they're not some of the other teams. So it's like to see them up front is pretty awesome. And also too, like, we discussed earlier, Kyle, you and I, in closed door discussions, as we have sometimes, the Detroit Grand Prix, unbelievable, minus the penalties that were levied. But man, Malukas qualifying second, Ferrucci finishing second. I'm telling you what, the Foyt team, not trying to be a homer, but I'm telling you, there's some momentum going there. And I don't know who believes in momentum in motorsports, but man, they're going to an oval next in 2 weeks. So I'm telling you, they might snag a win before the end of the year's over. Before the end of the year, I think they might get one.
I would love to see it. And I don't care if it's Malukas or Ferrucci. I mean, Ferrucci's got kind of the plucky underdog story that makes his potential for winning seem really, really exciting. Malukas is that kid on the rise. He's George Russell at Williams F1 5 or 6 years ago type thing, where we haven't seen what his full potential is going to be. But, all the talk, behind the scenes and in the paddock is that, Will Power could be out at Team Penske at the end of this year, and that the plan is to bring Malukas up, which, of course, Malukas had a ride going with McLaren until he had that injury. And then McLaren pretty ruthlessly moved on from him. And then, he gets picked up by Foyt, but, he's some are saying he's in line for that Penske ride. And I don't know if I'd say Will Power's, done and dusted yet. But a seat swap there could be pretty interesting, because I think Power could bring a lot of, veteran savvy and insight of what it's like to be a top qualifying driver and a winning driver and a championship driver to Foyt, which of course we know Foyt has that Penske Technical Alliance now that we touched on at the start of the season. So I think there's a lot of stuff there that's really interesting. It'll be cool to see how things develop. I hope they get a win this season. So far, Chevrolet's winless this season in IndyCar, if I'm not mistaken. It's been all Honda. Alex Palou winning 9,000 races, and then Kyle Kirkwood's won 2. But you know what? My favorite thing about Detroit is the downtown circuit is the dual pit lane. And Looker, I don't know if you saw this, but because of the compact area that the street circuit has to work within, the pits are two-sided with a divider lane down the middle. Yep. So you actually have cars pitting across from each other, and I think that's massively entertaining. I would love to have one of those VIP seats over pit lane and just be able to soak up all that action.
Yeah, that's a really cool setup.
Well, you know what I caught when I
I was just going to say I didn't know a lot about it, but I saw a couple clips of it, and that's really neat, kind of different.
Now, Kyle, what I want to bring up to you is, I don't know if you caught what Pato O'Ward said about the Detroit circuit, that he hates it. Hates it. He said the turns, it's all wide open, 90-degree turns, first gear, second gear turns. He hates it, but meanwhile, he finished 7th. So I don't know how you could be, or 7th or 8th. So I don't know how you could be so upset when you finished in the top of the field and had a good day, basically, but maybe you didn't win. But you know what, though? As long as this championship chase is, you don't have to win it. I mean, he survived it. There's a lot of guys that did not survive that race. I mean, there was a lot of guys that wrecked, and Palou obviously getting punted by Malukas. I mean, and Malukas straight up said, "Oh, sorry, my brakes locked up. Didn't mean to do that." But that's kind of stuff that happens. So and that's what makes this series so cool, because they went from Indy to here. They're going to go to the Oval next 2 weeks. It's so crazy how it all works out. So I don't know. It's like, but I still get salty about Award just crapping on the Detroit course, because it's like, IndyCar and Penske and Chevrolet all work together on this, and it's like you're gonna shite on this. It's like, come on, let's pump the brakes a little bit, because you didn't have the finish you wanted. Let's maybe not dump on the entire event, because I'm from there and I know what that event means to the city, and it's a very big event. And people that I know that went to it said it was unbelievable to watch and just to experience. The way the event was put together and the production of it was pretty amazing. So, I just don't like when drivers get on there and say, "Oh, this place sucks." But because to me, I look at it as the casual fan looks at it as, well, he thinks Detroit sucks.
Right.
He's talking about the track.
Yep.
But the people that just pass, looking on their phone saying, "Oh, Pato Award hates Detroit." It's like, oh, well, then that's not a good look for anybody. But I mean, if you think about it, Kyle, it's like, and Matt, it's like, you don't say that. It's like, I've been to many tracks in Monster Jam and other places that I didn't like, but I never said this place sucked.
Right.
You just don't do that. Because meanwhile, the city could be the greatest place ever, and you had so much fun around it and building up to it, but you never, you just, and Kyle, you can probably look it up and say, on racer.com and what's his face, Marshall Pruitt, a great motorsports journalist. He has it. It's like, you just don't say this place sucks. I mean, that's a bit much, in my opinion.
I agree. I think what you ultimately have to do is be a little more delicate about it and just say, man, this sucks how this worked out for us. Like this, or, my car handled really sucky, or, something to that effect, to where you're not being so negative about it, because you are trying to build fan engagement in these areas, especially, an urban area like this. And you're trying to, street courses obviously appeal to a younger demographic. At least they're intended to, because they present very dramatically on TV, and they're, iconic with the big buildings in the background and the sweeping views over the river. And it makes for some pretty gorgeous television. I will say, though, I guess in defense of Pato Award, Belle Isle raced a lot better, and he was a winner at Belle Isle too. So he's a little biased towards Belle Isle, I would say, in that point. I'm sure everything about Belle Isle logistically and like comfort wise is probably a little better for the teams being out there. I wouldn't be mad if it went back to Belle Isle at some point. And even now, as I'm talking to you about this, it's crazy how close it is to Belle Isle, the downtown street course. I'm sitting here looking at the street course thing, like, how can we add another half mile to that track? It's what, a mile and a quarter, mile and a half track. Like, it's not a long lap at all around there. And so then the thoughts, like, how do we get, because the only real run is that quote unquote back street down Jefferson Avenue. And the best passing opportunity is that heavy braking zone at the end of that. So it's like, okay, well, where else can we weave the cars through that, doesn't disrupt the city of Detroit any more than this stuff already does? So it's tough. They're talking like this will be the last year for NASCAR doing the street race in Chicago, and that they're not going to pick up the options on it. And then they're, all the talk I'm hearing is gearing towards San Diego, but also still trying to find a way towards some of those other bigger markets around LA, around New York City, even hearing things about, the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains, again, as Denver is a really big, growing, emerging, and premier market. So the only way to take race cars like Indy cars or stock cars to these areas and get crowds is you have to take the race cars and the track to the people. You have to bring it to them on a platter and serve it to them, because there aren't existing racetracks with infrastructure capable of handling a national or an international touring series like IndyCar or like NASCAR. So if Detroit doesn't have an oval, if Denver doesn't have an oval or a sweeping road course or whatever, with all the right infrastructure, then you have to build it, right there on the spot and try and lure people in. I feel like, so some people have said to me, like with all the hate that Formula One has gotten from Las Vegas locals and residents doing the street circuit there, they're like, America hates street circuits. America hates street circuits. I'm like, well, to be sure, there's some of that. Americans are so accustomed to high levels of convenience and free roaming ability. I can walk out to my F-150 right now and just drive wherever the hell I want, and not really have to worry a whole hell of a lot about traffic. Where I'm sure in downtown Baku in Azerbaijan, where Formula One races, I'm in for a little more traffic if I want to fire up my Opel Astra and drive around downtown Baku. So when Formula One comes to a city like that, I try and remind people, well, that's a once a year thing. And Formula One is such a gigantic touring sports property around the world that, like, folks here in the U.S. sometimes can't even quite comprehend, how big F1 is on the global scale. So I think residents that might already be more open to the idea of a street circuit, because it doesn't maybe disrupt their lifestyle as much as it would disrupt Americans' lifestyle in our metro areas. It's also like a once a year type thing. Now, granted, the Detroit or the Las Vegas Grand Prix and stuff, those are once a year things as well. But I don't know that they're as meaningful or impactful to those residents as something like an F1 race happening on the streets of Monaco, right? So there's cultural differences at play. There's logistical differences at play. America's a big, big, big country, and people tend to not think about that sometimes when it comes to the freedom of movement we have here and the expected freedom of movement we have. I mean, one lane closed due to construction sets people off into crazy road rage. So, imagine shutting down several blocks of a major metropolitan city, So as iconic as it would be to see stock cars and Indy cars racing down through Times Square, don't hold your breath. We're probably not going to see that anytime soon. But well, that'll kind of wrap up our IndyCar talk right there. Sorry, Matt Looker, that Frank and I were double teaming you from both sides and both ear holes with IndyCar talk.
Jesus.
But now we're going to throw the floor to you, because it's show and tell time. Yeah, calm down.
No, jeez.
Wait, are you
easy there?
Easy, Randy.
Easy, yeah.
You're not talking about
Well, what I was going to say is I heard you had a show.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just a weak attempt on my part at a segue there. I was just going to say, I heard you might have a little bit of a show and tell item for us that might be the perfect lead in to our newest segment underneath the round tire. So our sub segment of round tire discussion, the what happened to ... segment. That's exactly how it's pronounced. And look at this. Oh, Smokin' Shakers.
Oh my God.
Look at that. In all its glory.
Smokin' Shakers, I thought, is what you call the people frequenting the local bingo hall with their cigarettes.
That's Barb.
Look at that.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Barb. Yeah. Barb.
Barb.
How many cheeseburgers are you making,
man.
Barb? So let us get a look one more time at the instructions on the back of that. In fact, in that luxurious Italian-American baritone of yours, would you kindly read us in the sexiest way possible the instructions on that?
Yes. So it's got a neutral button. With neutral button in forward position, the Intimidator will smoke and shake without advancing. The battery compartment requires 4 AA batteries. They're not included. And then there's the ignition switch. To start the engine, you move the ignition switch to the on position. and then you put one of your dad's.
Why will my
Marlboro
pants not
Reds
stay on?
right in it? Oh, and in case you wanted, there's the Ertles Collector Club. You can send away for it.
Hey, do it right. Hey, fill it out and send it right
I
now.
want my membership packet, damn it.
Oh, man. 1985.
What's the address? Read me the address right now.
The address.
Read me the... I'm on Google Maps.
Are you ready?
Read me the
Are you ready
address.
for it? Okay.
I'm ready.
The Ertl Company, Dyersville, Iowa, 52040, a subsidiary of Kitty Incorporated. There could be jokes for days about that. It was made in Hong Kong and packaged in Mexico.
Okay, let's see. Well, I think the copy on the back of the box was written in Hong Kong, too.
Yes.
I'm not having much luck finding the since decommissioned Ertl Company in Dyersburg, I'm afraid. There is, while looking for monster truck references in Dyersville, there is the Blacksmith Restaurant, which is awesome.
Everything is
word is there's a captain's curse in the dumpster there. Yep.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, hot wings so spicy it'll send you rocketing into the safety holds.
One more thing on here.
Oh, there's a cigarette shop called Mr. Smoke.
So
Okay.
One more thing on here. This was made in 1985, and it says safety tested, non-toxic smoke. So how much you want to bet this gives you like 5 kinds of cancer?
Yeah. Use our patented liquid asbestos to generate smoke from Intimidator's massive V8 engine.
I can remember how that smelled because I had the same thing. Oh, It stunk.
Hey, while we're touring, I love doing this stuff. I go down Google Map wormholes. So while we're in Dyersburg, Iowa, searching vainly for the
Dyersville.
Dyersville.
Yeah.
Why did I type Dyersburg?
Yes.
Oh, shit, I got the wrong Dyer in Iowa here.
Just search Ertl. See what happens.
Yeah. No luck in Dyersville either. The Ertl Company at 507 13th Avenue has since closed, I'm afraid. Much to everyone's shock.
What a shame.
I'm sure.
Right.
Well, that's disappointing because there was a business in Dyersburg called Mr. Smoke, which seemed fitting. And there was also a Chinese buffet restaurant that had a funny name, but I've already since moved on from there. So the Ertl Company's address is currently listed on top of what looks like to be a home in a residential area. So I don't know how much I buy that. There does seem to be in these Google map photos. I cannot tell you if these are clouds or if it's just smoke still emanating from the former Ertl factory, but it's obscuring my view of the National Farm Toy Museum and the Super 8 Wyndham. So I love.
See now, Kyle. Here's something funny. I was at a was it a Menards, and I saw some like tractor puller toys made.
Yep.
And they were made by Ertl. So Ertl is still I don't know if they're owned by Lionel.
Oh, I still have
what they are, but Ertl is still something. I just don't know where they are
right.
now.
I bought some of those just for the sled.
So did I.
It says Ertl.
Yes, I think Ertl makes. Yes.
In fact, I had to reach off camera to one of my Matchbox Superchargers Bigfoots, which was conveniently hooked to this here weight transfer machine.
Conveniently.
I'm telling you, here in Wyoming, where pulling is not a thing. Well, I mean, it's always convenient, right? I mean, I unhooked that faster than Andy Brass did. So, come on. I'm throwing my hat in the air. Go, get him. The entire future of the monster truck industry is on the line, Jim. Now go win. I cannot imagine what they had to do to get rid of these, because anybody perusing the toy aisle at Menards is looking at that like, what the fuck is that toy? Like,
Right.
Here, kids, you want this?
I knew exactly what it was.
I did too. I was like, whoa. And then my daughters were like, whoa, is that a pulling sled? I'm like, God, I love you guys. Yes, it is a pulling sled. We're buying 6 of them today. It's the NTPA Super 6 Wide Nationals. A tractor pulling event so big it's happening at 2 fairgrounds at the same time. That's amazing. Hey, let's talk about the Smokin shaker there, the Shakin smoker. I don't get that right. I'm on eBay right now looking for one of these little guys. Here's one out of the box, Matt. $32.95 used, battery operated, wheels turn, shaking smoke feature does not work. Missing battery cover.
Dang.
I beg to differ. You are 1 lit cigarette away from this thing working correctly again. Now, what else is funny to me and somewhat disappointing about the toy, Matt, is that the exhaust seems to dump out the side of this toy, if I'm not mistaken, looking at these pictures.
Down here.
In a pretty disappointing and unremarkable way. They're borderline. We're losing Frank for the second time tonight, but it's to a heart attack this time. Yeah, but it appears to just emanate smoke in a very unceremonious way underneath, when the real Intimidator photo on the screen right now had massive pipes coming out of the fender wells. Like, nothing says I'm not worried about my suspension travel like dumping your exhaust out between your fender and your moving tire. Like,
Yep.
oh my goodness, Matt, you won the evening for us with your smoking shaker there tonight.
The only thing I can think of
where the
right
hell
now,
is? Let's get to the. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
the only thing I can think of right now with having exhaust going through the fender like that is if it was on a Jimmy Cretin truck and the come apart he would have if you slammed the front end down too hard and crushed those zoomies.
Oh man. I just found what appears to be a Smokin Shakers commercial on YouTube here, guys. Who wants to watch it? Should we watch it? Let's see if we can hold on to Frank here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Whoa. It's Shakin. He's got the parking space.
What the hell is that?
Come on. What? Load, you son of a bitch. Oh.
Smokin Shakers.
Tennessee Thunder.
Wow, that looked like some horribly unbalanced engine work right there.
But Tennessee Thunder. So we talked about this in a prior broadcast.
He's got it.
Dan Patrick was tight. Dan Patrick was tight with Mike Hollingsworth back in the day. I learned this.
Finish that sentence. Holy smokes. Nothing. Matt, I was pretty alarmed at how bad the blower and hat were shaking on Intimidator there. I mean, could you imagine the vibration through the steering column as that engine is just hammering away, and then you've got smoke coming out from some unknown orifice in the chassis. But then why does the pulling car, it comes out of the header pipes like it's supposed to? I'm so confused right now. I'm going to rename this segment to just Off the Rails. That's where we've gone right now. He won't stop showing us that car, amazing. That beautiful car.
I think we need to add a segment to look up a random monster truck toy from the days of yore in every episode.
It's the bottom dead center toy box review. That's awesome. I love getting into the old commercials too. Obviously, if you watch any of the videos on the OSMT channel, you know I like my vintage commercials. But that's spectacular. So the actual Intimidator truck, and I reached out to one of my research assistants, Chris Mormanis. He hooked me up with some cool photos. So originally that truck was owned by a cat named Tim Greenfield out of Dubuque, Iowa, which if Dubuque sounds familiar to any of you legit old school fans, it's because that's where the Dubuque Star Brewery was at, as seen in Take This Job and Shove It, with Bigfoot #1 appearing in that film. Arguably some of the best acting of the film was done by Bigfoot. But that was also the case with Every Police Academy and Roadhouse and Tango and Cash and I'm sure some others I'm forgetting. Cannonball Run too. Anyhow, throw the pictures up on the screen for the viewers watching us here on YouTube. But the truck was originally called Predator, which is interesting. It was beautifully lettered, as far as I can tell. Very Dan Patterson style lettering, I would say, on it. And just gorgeous two-tone brown and kind of like an espresso brown and a bit of a cream color. I'm dropping it in the group chat for the boys right now so they can admire it with me. What's the point of Penthouse Letters if you don't get the magazine to look at it at the same time? Like, nobody's asking for the audiobook version of Penthouse Letters. So there, I sent you guys that picture.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, there you go. I knew Matt had found the goods. Oh yeah. But then the truck was renamed Intimidator for whatever reason. I certainly believe all of this predated Alan Pizzo's Predator, at least by a little bit. But then, of course, they struck up their famous Ertl Smokin Shakers toy deal that we've covered in immense detail so far this evening. In this black and white shot from the Pontiac Silverdome, which this looks like a Steve Reyes shot if I've ever seen one. It's absolutely gorgeous, as all of Steve's monster truck photo work was. But look how dreadfully long those headers are. Holy cow, man. It looks like
absurd. The
headers are shaped like one of those downhill slide things that you ride on a blanket down, where it's like down and kind of levels, and then back. Very alpine, plastic skiing sledding hill shape there. Very, very scary. And those things held on somehow. Shocker.
Very fence post.
Yeah.
Very fence post looking.
So I'll try and find the video clip to drop in here. I want to say it was maybe an 88 or an 89 USHRA broadcast. Brett Kepner was on the call, which was spectacular. But it was from it was a drag strip in Illinois, if that sounds right. And I believe Intimidator was there in one of its later incarnations with the multicolor paint job. But they were sending that thing pretty hard, and the headers were not snapping off and scattering about on the racetrack. So one can only assume, using the best educated guesses available, that those might have been made out of 120 wall steel tubing, maybe, and that they were somehow like through bolted really strong to the heads. I don't know. It's some wild stuff right there. The reinforcement alone for that must have been massive. So we asked the question during this new sub-segment we've made up, what happened to ... question mark. What happened to the Intimidator? Well, according to Chris's excellent information he's provided me with that I have no reason to doubt whatsoever, the truck was owned by Tim Greenfield, like I said, and then it was later sold to a cat named Mark Reichert. And then it eventually went through some sort of transitionary phase where it was sort of off the grid, maybe backpacking in Europe, trying to find itself. I don't know. But it ended up becoming a ride truck, the Carolina Crusher ride truck. It had a long nose, like a long Snoopy-style Chevy fiberglass nose on the front. And apparently the Torgesons still own and operate that ride truck with some kind of body on it. So kind of crazy that the old Intimidator is still out there, probably shaking and smoking. Which is other topics we could have covered during our ride truck safety brief earlier. Is your ride truck can shake, but don't have it smoking on the people. Although I desperately now want to have a ride truck with a fake engine, intake assembly rising through the hood, and just have it shaking about violently whenever the truck is running, so people think that there's just something catastrophic going on. No, this is how we did it in the 80s. It's fine. All right. Well, I think we've wore out our welcome with the internet. I mean, they already tried to take the internet away from Frank tonight, so we've had a rough one abusing the internet this evening. But so as I covered, we'll do a couple last little notes here. I'll throw it to Frank first. Anything we didn't cover tonight that you were hoping to cover, Frank? And then let all the people know one more time where they can see you at out on the road with Hot Wheels Monster Truck Live over the next few weeks.
Well, I just got to throw a big shout out to Alex Barden, obviously, for getting back in the saddle after that collarbone injury, and then AJ Foyt team for having a great Indy 500 and a great Detroit Grand Prix. And then, we had a good weekend in Baltimore, no problems. And I can't wait to get to Stafford. So much monster truck history in Stafford Springs. I can't wait to get there. It's the first time I've been there ever. So it's going to be really exciting to get to Stafford Springs with Bobby Holman, his team, the Bigfoot guys, Eric Steinberg, Cody Smith. It's going to be a good time. So we're looking forward to it.
We want to see smoky donuts from you because we know those tires on Mega Rex will smoke even more outside on rough asphalt than they will on the hockey floors. So you better light them up for us.
Absolutely.
You better be smoking and shaking while you're doing those donuts.
Hope the motor's not shaking.
I want the iPhone
shaking. Tires, that's fine.
I want the iPhone POV video while you're mid donut. Just, all right, Matt Looker, tell us where you got coming up next for Throwdown, and I hear you might have a non-Throwdown show, but still a really, really kick-ass show coming up that you're going to be at soon.
Yeah, so this coming weekend, it's not Throwdown branded, but Throwdown staff kind of manages it and runs it. It's the Joliet show, one of the big, I think you can call it a bucket list show. It's a big one every year. It's been going on for a long time. We got all 4 Kohler's trucks, 2 Jerry Beck, and the Send It crew, the Polar Bear and the Haymaker will be there. So it'll be a good one. I know you said to Frank where people can see you. Hopefully you won't have to see me because that's not my best view. But I'll be announcing that one in those very large grandstands that I get to thankfully run up and down every time that I get to do an interview. So that'll be exciting.
This is Route 66 Raceway in Joliet, Illinois, just outside Chicago. For the folks that might not know Joliet immediately, shame on you if you don't, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. Yeah. Excellent dirt track facility.
Yes, beautiful place. If you're in the Chicagoland area, honestly, within a 4 or 5 hour drive, it would be worth coming up to see. We use the entire infield, the front stretch. It's a big, big track. It's always a great event.
Looker, I would literally die from laughing if you could somehow find a used model of those chair assemblies that lift old folks up their stairs at home. The chair folds out, they ride up it. If you put that on the handrails in the grandstands and just cross your legs and casually announce as you ride up the stairs, like, let's motor on up to the top row here and talk to these fans holding up the Avengers sign.
Yes, and extra points for how slow it goes too.
Yes. In just a half an hour.
It's got to squeak, too.
Yeah,
it's got to squeak.
In just a half an hour, I will be up in the top row talking to that fan with the Avengers sign. In the meantime, it's intermission, folks, while I make my way up topside. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I don't have anything as exciting as what you guys do as far as going anywhere. Super, super cool. Kids are finishing up school here, so I'm excited for that this week. Trying to get on with our summers a little bit. Thinking about possibly, maybe, heading down to Colorado National Speedway here in a couple weeks and checking out our good friend Jim Kohler there as part of their Father's Day monster truck event. But that also happens to be the day after the largest brew festival in Wyoming that I'm in charge of my company's presence at. So I can tell you on Father's Day Sunday, I usually don't want to be very mobile. So we'll see if I can find that slow moving crawler chair to haul my ass down there, then maybe I'll pop down that way and see those guys. Lots more cool OSMT videos headed your guys' way, of course. The Mansfield 1990 show dropping this week, as is this video, and it'll either be Friday night or Saturday morning. We'll see you on that. We had a blast with the Indy weekend release where we did the 88 Jamboree is like Saturday morning cartoons type thing in the morning. Had a really lively group chat for that, which was really cool. And as I mentioned on our Instagram page just the other day, we've just got a couple more episodes of Bottom Dead Center left, and then we're going to kind of take our well-deserved and much-needed summer break. Not because we're going anywhere and slacking off, just as much as we are all going to have going on over the course of the summer. We don't want to bring you shorter or chintzier episodes. We want to be smoking and shaking to our fullest potential at every turn here on Bottom Dead Center. So we'll take our summer break, get through all of that, try and kick that smoking habit, and then come back into it strong at the start of the fall. So a couple episodes ahead of us still, though. We definitely want to do a little World Finals talk coming up soon. The big event happening 4th of July weekend out in Salt Lake City. And I'm sure we'll find plenty of other vintage monster truck toys and other nostalgic items that we need to review here on Bottom Dead Center. So anyhow, for myself, Matt Looker, Frank Krimmel, Matt Eisen, still on the road to recovery and doing well. So we'll look forward to having him on probably in season 2. And of course, our mastermind behind the scenes, pumping us full of anecdotal stories and bad ideas, Cody Saucier. Love him too. That's all I got, boys. I don't know if you have anything else left, but that should do it for tonight.
That's it, man. We're good.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time here on OSMT's YouTube channel. This has been another brilliant production of Bottom Dead Center.